Hello everyone and welcome to LowRentRick Scale Modelling and my build of this legendary kit, the Tamiya 135 scale S.A.S. Land Rover Pink Panther. Now this is my first Tamiya kit, believe it or not. So before we get going with the build, I'd like to ask you all to do me a favour and subscribe to my channel. It's completely free, it doesn't cost anything, but what it does do is it makes my channel a little bit more popular. It pops up on the algorithm and it shows this video to more people and allows me to make much more videos. So please do consider hitting that button and leaving any comments or any likes on the video as well. It really helps me out. So let's get on with what we've got in the box. So I was surprised when I first unboxed this to find that the sprues are pink. I believe it's a Tamiya thing to paint the to colour the plastic rather in the colour that the model is going to be. Please let me know in the comments if you know different, but it's what I've heard across Facebook. My first experience of the Tamiya instructions, one set in sort of I think Korean and one set in English. The instructions are extremely clear and the sprues look like they're in fantastic condition. I'm really looking forward to the build because I do like a quality build. I've had some good Edouard kits in the past, and I've recently built an Airfix, the D-Day air assault kit, which has a new tool, Typhoon 1B, in it, which was absolutely brilliant. And this looks like the sprues are in really great condition. So to get the effect that I'm looking for, I'm going to pre-shade most of this build with some standard green. This will give me the effect, hopefully, that this has been painted over with the pink paint over a standard green Land Rover, and it should bring out a little bit more depth and detail. One or two of the ones I've seen across the internet are really bright pink. I'm going for a different look to that. I want it a little bit more subdued and to actually look like it was a standard army issue Land Rover, of which I've drove many, that has been like hastily or quickly painted over with the pink paint. I'm going to concentrate the pre-shading on sort of the main surfaces and some of the lines, so any panel lines within the build itself, and also around some of the edges, and try to leave some of the center areas lighter so that when I go over the top with the UK Desert Pink from Vallejo, that it'll just accent that shading slightly and hopefully give me quite an authentic look. So now to see if that method has worked, I'm going to use Vallejo Model Air, the 71.400 UK Desert Pink, because it's a little bit less pink than some of the other ones out there, and that's the look I'm going for. So I'm just going to put a very thin coat, so this has been watered down by about 20% also, just to give the lightest coat over the pre-shading and see what sort of effect and shine through I get from the underneath. We can see here that the effect is actually going on really well. It's quite subtle. You can still see the darkness behind it, and there's still some brush painting to go over the top, so I'm pleased with the method. Moving on now to painting the accessories and all the add-ons to the main body. I'm going to be using Humbrol acrylic number 63 for the main sandy colour. I'm going to paint over the top of most of the ancillary bits and the material bits, so the seats, the hood at the back and the net at the front, and then I'm going to weather over the top of them to give them some depth. I'm going to use this colour for the base, for the uniform too, for the figure, for the driver. And then I'm going to go and do his skin with some Vallejo model colour dark flesh. Onto the chassis build now, and it's got to be said, the chassis has quite a few parts, but they all just slot together perfectly well. There is a point to note here: when you're putting the drive shaft through, you have to thread it through first, but it just speaks to the quality of these kits, just how well this chassis went together. So this section there is the drive shaft, and the section I'm cutting out now is the mount that it has to pass through. I would suggest a dry fit on this part. It's the only real difficult part, just working out which way up and which way round it does go. So I attempted a few different ways up and down until I got it right. For the drive shaft, the metal parts, the exhaust, etc., I'm going to use an enamel. I'm going to use a Humbrol number 11 metallic, but in very thin coats. So I'm just going to layer up those coats nice and thin, and then over the top of them, because there are some details on these parts, later on when I do the chassis paint, I'll put a black wash over the top of them to really pull that detail out. The front wheel assembly is designed to move on a pinion, so you don't glue those parts onto the hub, so you can position the wheels anywhere you want and it doesn't give it that static straight wheeled look. It's just worth noting that you don't glue that piece on. The tyres are going to start their life black, and then they're going to have multiple layers put over the top of them, so they're going to be black first, and then I'm going to go over the top of them with a little bit of grey from the Tamiya XF77, and then I'm going to dry brush over the top of them with two various sand colours to see if I can get some realism into the tyres. So that's the chassis build almost complete, except for some gear knobs and some four-wheel drive selectors. Just be careful with these parts, they're extremely thin. I suppose they have to be at this scale. So there is a potential for the carpet monster to be fed here. So just be a little bit careful. Just like I wasn't there rolling my scalpel right across the bits, that could have pinged away. But the chassis was a pleasure to put together. It's really, really well designed and a really good fit. Now it's time to see how the main body comes together. This is the best part for me, when I see the thing take shape from just a chassis and into a familiar shape. This will also be the point, obviously, where I'll see any bare edges poking through that are still bare plastic that I've missed in the pre-shade. It's difficult to visualise which parts are going to show through and which parts aren't. So this will be a bit of an eye-opener for me. This part here, the front wings and dashboard, you'll need to offer up a few times. There is a recess or a couple of plugs for it to fit into, but it's not readily apparent how it fits together, so you'll have to dry fit a few times until you feel it just click in. You find with these kits, the better the precision. It's not often obvious how they just slot together, but all of a sudden they'll just marry up and you'll feel that slot in. It's worth noting here that for the aluminium gun holsters on each wing, they do show in the instructions that there are recesses, and there are actually plugs on each piece to fit into the recesses, but in fact there are none actually drilled into the wings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove those plugs off the holsters and just stick them straight in by eye. Just a point to note if you're looking for them and think you may have done something wrong, but there isn't any recesses actually in the wings. Now that the main body's together, one thing I have realised is it does actually squeak like a Land Rover. That's probably an inadvertent or bit of authenticity there, but it actually does sound squeaky like a Land Rover suspension does. So at this point now I'm going to completely finish painting the model, completely finish the base coat before I go over the top with the weathering, patch up any parts I've missed, any parts I've had to sand, or any parts which I've rubbed off with my big clumsy fingers. Adding a thin watered down black wash here over any parts that are material or canvas or netting, just so that the black goes into all the detail and really makes the ridges and everything stand out and pop. I'm trying to achieve a look which is sort of hand painted, which is kind of what I go against when I'm doing all the other models. I want to get it as smooth as possible, but what I'm trying to do here is look like the pink has been hand painted over the top of a green Land Rover, which is particularly difficult with the wheel rims. by far the tattiest part of this kit was the figure. It seemed to have a lot of rough edges, and the detail's not great. But using the black wash over it as well as the Humbrol for the base colour, you can still get a bit of texture on the uniform. And the model colour Vallejo, the 70.927 dark flesh, is really good for a skin colour. I'm going to start the weathering by dry brushing over the black on the rubber and the tyres with some Tamiya XF77 to take the shine off the tyres and add a little bit more grey onto them and make them look more realistically like rubber. Now to add all the little ancillary parts. There are a couple of machine guns, some lights, and obviously some range finding equipment and tools that need to go on. So I'm going to get those painted up now, and then give them a light wash over with a bit of the pink to make them look like they've been hastily sort of painted over, and leave a couple obviously for contrast so we get the nice depth and the whole thing just doesn't look like a big pink blob. Once all the small details are added and the small details have been painted in and the final touch-up's been done, I'm going to start weathering now by dry brushing on various colours of sand. So I'm going to use some dark flesh, some Humbrol and some Vallejo as well, some ochre, to dry brush on the tyres and make it look like it's been a sandy, dusty environment. I'm going to do the same for the bodywork all around the edges and bottoms, to make it look like it's got some sand flying about and it's a little bit dusty and a little bit rough looking. Just be careful here because I'm dry brushing over acrylics with no varnish, so it's very easy to rub your paint off if you're a little bit too aggressive with the dry brushing. So just keep an eye on that. You can always varnish the model with some matte varnish first, but I like to, for this one, I'm not going to do that. I like to keep the look developing as I'm doing it, and I find that sometimes the varnish can mute it a little bit. So I'll just do bit by bit and try and be gentle and not overdo it with the dry brushing. So there we have the finished article, and it has to be said, the most enjoyable build I've done so far in my short scale modelling career. It's an absolutely fantastic model, by far the best one. For the money, you absolutely can't fault it. If you're still here after nearly an hour, thank you so much for joining me for this build. Please do consider liking, commenting and subscribing, and help my small channel along. And if you like, pop along to Facebook, Scale Modelling for Everybody. Come and join us. We started a few months ago with 1 or 2 of us, and now we've just tipped over 100. We'd love to have you and see your work. Thank you so much. Please join me on the next video, and bye bye for now.